This week is another TLTV request. It's the incredible true story of one young man and his unshakable convictions in the middle of World War II, who is determined to save lives without taking them. Hey everybody, welcome back to TLTV. My name is Tyler, and we got another straight up movie review for you. This week, we're going to be talking about Hacksaw Ridge. This is the incredible true story of a young man named Desmond Doss, who in World War II found himself compelled to join and serve his country, but his religious views prevented him from carrying a weapon and taking another life. He still felt like it was his duty to serve and to go and protect the rights and freedoms of our country, but he didn't think that his way of doing so was by taking another human life. Now, being someone in the military and not wanting to carry a weapon or be prepared to take another human life in a time of combat, this obviously made the people in his platoon and in his company very wary about his convictions and about what his true reasons were for joining. Because during the time of the draft, it was very clear that some people didn't want to be there, and that was fine. They took every measure they could to try and remove themselves from a combat situation. That way they didn't endanger other people's lives on the front lines. Desmond Doss, on the other hand, he made sure that he was on the front lines serving as a combat medic. Now, that made the people he was serving with very weary about him watching their back, because if he is not armed, how can he protect them from the enemy if they were in a vulnerable position? But, as we see throughout the movie, he does just that over and over again. Now, one of the things that I have an slight issue with, is at the very beginning of the movie, it says, a true story. Not based on a true story, a true story. Now, when I see that, I think that everything that happens in this story, in this movie, had to be real. That's where my mind goes. Because if it's based on a true story, you kind of assume that some parts are real, some parts are, they're over dramatized for effect, to get that kind of Hollywood effect. Which I understand. Being an actor and being someone who served in the military, I get it. I've been on both sides of the table, and I've seen how you have to kind of adjust stories for dramatic effect. I understand that. Going into watching this movie, seeing that it was a true story, made me think that, okay, this is how everything went down. That's not necessarily how it was. I went and researched the actual story of Desmond Doss once I finished the film, but what I found was that the parts that were over dramatized or were changed for dramatic effect either had nothing to do with the heroic acts that Desmond Doss actually did in real life, or they changed some of the acts to kind of fit more into the timeline of the movie. So I think it was a very clear choice that they said a true story at the beginning of this film, because they didn't want us as audience members to think that only some of this stuff really happened. Because some of the stuff that he did was so outlandish, they left it out of the movie because they didn't think audiences would believe it. One of the things that this movie does really well is establish who Desmond Doss was and why his convictions were the way that they were. They establish who he was as a person, his home life, the kind of backstory, if you will, before he joined the military. And they spent just long enough on it to where you understood the type of person he was before going into the military. Now, once you get into his military service, the main concern I had going into this movie was Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn is normally your slapstick comedic actor who is cast in this serious role as the sergeant of Desmond Doss's company. That being said, I think he did a phenomenal job in this role. There was never a moment where I felt like his natural comedic nature detracted from the character that he was portraying in the film. His comedic timing was still there, and I think it was very appropriate for the role, because And all of you military guys and gals out there know this already. Boot camp is hilarious. It's one of those things that when the drill instructors are making fun of people, it's so funny, and they do it on purpose to try and make you break. So they got that type of humor into the film beautifully. Andrew Garfield did an amazing job portraying Desmond Doss. He really carried the weight of this film and the internal struggle that he had as a human being fighting his own nature, which we saw from his backstory was, prone to violence from his father and his upbringing, but fighting that internal fire within him and channeling it for good. We really saw that come through in many parts over the course of this story. But one thing that really surprised me, and after going back and looking at everything, it shouldn't be surprising since they won the award for it, the sound in this movie was haunting. I think it's the best word for it. It was raw, it was gritty, and there were times where they would bring the volume all the way down, pretty much no background noise, and it would just be some of the men conversing between themselves. And it would kind of force you to really listen in and really focus on what they were saying. And then not long after that, you're bombarded with the sounds of war, mortars dropping, guns firing, and it was just this kind of barrage of sound that was attacking your senses. And it was meant to throw you off guard. It was meant to throw you off balance and kind of give you an idea of what they call the fog of war. Now, it wasn't just the sound, it was also the visuals, the real raw, gritty gore of a battlefield in World War II. And all of these things combined was such a very clear contrast to what Andrew Garfield's Desmond Doss was doing by saving all of these lives without taking lives. With all of this chaos and this carnage all surrounding him, he was fighting through it all to save people's lives. And that very clear contrast, I think, is the most powerful aspect of this film. So when all is said and done, I'm going to give this movie a 95% on the TLTV scale, because it was a really good story. It was really well done, expertly acted, and I think they really got you to understand his convictions at the end of the day and believe in what he believed in. So if you haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge yet, I definitely recommend checking it out. That's it for this week. Thanks again for watching. If you've given me suggestions, don't worry, I've taken them all down, and if you haven't seen yours yet, don't worry, it's coming. Once again, if you're watching this on Facebook, don't forget to hit that like button up in the corner so you can be notified for future episodes. But if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tick that little bell so you can be notified for future episodes. You can also follow me on social media at Tyler J. Lamar and on the Stardust app at TLTV for my raw reactions to what I'm currently watching right now. I will be back in 2 weeks after a little vacation. Thanks again for watching. See you soon.